The real reason people can't escape poverty. Intelligence. Poverty. It's not just about how much money you've got sitting in your bank account. Poverty actually eats away at your intelligence. Researchers from the economics department at Harvard University conducted an experiment. They asked participants a simple question. Your car has a broken part. The repair will cost $300. Will you fix it, or just keep driving and hope it doesn't cause any big problems? Right after asking this, they gave the participants an IQ test. They split the participants into two groups based on their income level, the wealthy and the poor. So, what happened? Both groups scored about the same on the IQ test. But then, the researchers raised the stakes. They asked the same question, but this time the repair cost was $3,000. After that question, the wealthy participants' IQ scores stayed about the same. But for the poorer group, their scores dropped by over 13 points. And here's the thing. A drop of 13 IQ points can push someone from the average intelligence category into borderline levels. Think about that. Nothing actually happened in real life. They didn't have to pay any money, but just worrying about money took a serious toll on their intelligence. Of course, we all know society's structure and unequal opportunities play a huge part in why people can't escape poverty. But the real problem is that poverty itself becomes a trap. It damages people's ability to think and act in ways that could help them get out of it. Wealthy people can use all of their mental resources without worrying about money. But for people living in poverty, even their natural intelligence becomes hard to access. That's why poverty gets deeper and harder to escape. Self-control. And it's not just intelligence that poverty affects. Self-control is just as critical when it comes to escaping poverty. But money worries chip away at self-control too. The same Harvard research team ran a similar experiment again. But this time, instead of measuring IQ, they measured participants' self-control. Once again, they posed financially stressful questions. For the wealthy participants, their self-control stayed steady. But for the poorer group, it dropped significantly. Again, nothing had actually happened in real life. But simply worrying about money hit both their intelligence and their self-control hard. Tunneling. Ever noticed how your computer slows down when you're running a game, browsing the web, and downloading files all at once? Scarcity has a similar effect on the human mind. When someone lacks something critical, like money, their brain automatically devotes a chunk of its mental resources to thinking about that missing thing. So if you're short on money, you can't help but obsess over it. The problem is, there's less mental bandwidth left for everything else. Eventually, you end up locked into a tunnel vision where all you can focus on is that one problem, and the rest of life just fades into the background. Those Harvard experiments we talked about show exactly how people slip into this tunneling state when they feel financial scarcity. During World War II, the U.S. wanted to figure out how to safely rehabilitate people who'd been starved nearly to death. So researchers at the University of Minnesota conducted a brutal experiment. They starved 36 volunteers to the brink of permanent physical damage. The men grew so emaciated they lost the fat on their hips and couldn't even sit down without pain. But starvation didn't just change their bodies, it completely rewired their minds. Even after the experiment ended, many of them became obsessed with food. Some spent hours each day just reading menus or comparing grocery prices. Some even changed their entire career plans and decided they wanted to open restaurants. Food had become the center of their universe. That study is a powerful example of how scarcity takes over your mind and reshapes your entire focus in life. Money. In another experiment, kids were asked to draw a 50-cent coin. Turns out, kids from poorer families tended to draw the coin much bigger than kids from wealthier families. Just like a starving person can't stop thinking about food, kids with less money were mentally consumed by thoughts of money. And it's not just kids. Anyone who feels a deep sense of financial scarcity can end up in this same tunnel vision state, fixated on money. The irony is, the more intensely you focus on money, the worse your decisions about money can become. That's the tunneling effect in action. So instead of saving, learning about investing, or getting proper insurance, people living in financial stress often struggle to make long-term financial plans. Planning for the future takes mental space and self-control. But for someone whose brain is already maxed out with money worries, just making a plan feels nearly impossible, let alone sticking to it. Losing your abilities. This tunneling effect from scarcity isn't just about money, it shows up in everyday life too. In one experiment, researchers gathered a group of lonely people and told them to speak into a recorder and tell an interesting story about themselves. Then they told the participants that other people would listen to their recordings and rate how interesting they were. So, what happened? When evaluators listened to these recordings, they found the lonely people's stories completely dull, boring, and lacking any emotional impact. But then researchers tried it again. This time, they told the lonely participants to tell their stories, but reassured them that no one would be evaluating them afterward. And guess what? The evaluators rated those same people's stories as fun, engaging, and interesting. Why the difference? Because lonely people are so focused on their social scarcity, they become hyper-aware of how others might judge them. Even someone who's normally funny and charming can suddenly come across as awkward and stiff when they're worried about being evaluated. It's like when you're trying to impress someone you really like, you end up tongue-tied and rambling instead of being your usual witty self. The very desire to perform well ends up sabotaging your abilities. The paradox of focus. Here's the thing. Most things in life go worse if you focus on them too intensely. Psychologists have even studied the relationship between focus and performance and found it's shaped like an upside-down U. Too little focus, and you underperform. But too much focus, and you also crash and burn. It's the same in conversations. If you don't pay enough attention, you seem uninterested. But if you focus too hard, people feel uncomfortable and pressured. So whether it's poverty or loneliness, people who are stuck in a state of scarcity would actually do better if they could focus a little less on their unmet needs. But scarcity makes that nearly impossible. It's like that old thought experiment. Don't think of an elephant. And what happens? The first thing that pops into your head is an elephant. Scarcity is just that powerful. Escaping poverty or loneliness isn't just a matter of sheer willpower. No matter how desperate you are, sometimes the smartest move is to pause, look around, and gain some perspective. Especially when something feels super urgent and important, that's exactly when you need a little looseness. Because rest isn't a waste of time. It's essential maintenance for your brain's limited mental bandwidth. Remember, sometimes the only way forward is to take a breath and give your mind some space. Let's stick to it together.